Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We'll always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access, translation issues, and inconsistent evidence between multiple sources, there can be information that's lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let's start today's episode. Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Delila, and say hello to my lovely co-host Devante.
Hello.
And on this podcast, we will cover famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. So as you obviously noticed, today is a mini or episode or an add-on episode, so I will be the one reading. And after last episode, I guess Devante was just very heavily tired from that, so I'm just gonna help him out a little bit. Hopefully you will enjoy this episode. So we're gonna dive deeper into the story of Jammu. So if you haven't heard the last episode, I would recommend you to do that. So go listen to that one first before you go to this one. As many of you know, Jammu is one of the most notorious criminals in Finnish history, with his name making headlines in a sea of controversy. Despite all the media coverage, he only gave one interview where he shared his side of the story. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at his perspective and the double murder that shocked the country, and also talk about the intense media attention and discuss the well-known YouTube interview. So I guess grab the tea and the snack and whatever, and just...
Oh no, come on, don't do that though. You gotta do it right.
Okay.
Here, let me. I could do this part.
Okay, you do it, because you do it the best.
You already know what to do. Grab your tea, grab your snacks. If you're on your way to work, or the podcast comes out in the morning, tuck yourself into a nice little corner, because this is the continuation of the child molester and murderer, Jammu.
After inheriting the fortune from his sister, Jammu suddenly became rich, but he remained as stingy as ever. His friend Arska, who we briefly mentioned in the last episode, actually plays a bigger role in Jammu's story than you might expect. The catalyst for the double murder was Jammu's belief that Arska had stolen 200,000 Finnish marks from him. Arska is a real person and not a fiction of Jammu's imagination. Arska has since confirmed what many suspected about Jammu being a pedophile, at least as much as he could. He noticed how Jammu's gaze would change whenever a girl around the age of 10 appeared. Though Jammu was always quick to deny any accusations of child molestation, claiming he only gave kids car rides for money, Arska observed that it was never boys in the car, only girls. Jammu was so convinced that Arska had stolen from him that he started to spy on Arska. Apparently, Arska lived in the same area of Myllypuro where Päivi and Johanna were last seen. Jammu would often go there, claiming he was keeping an eye on Arska and stalking him. However, to the preteens in the neighborhood, Jammu was a familiar face, and they always saw him hanging around with nothing better to do. On Friday, March 3rd, Jammu had been in Myllypuro, stalking Arska as usual. While at the yard on Ylläkiventti, two little girls he didn't know approached him. According to Jammu, he claimed he hadn't shown any interest in the girls. As he was about to leave, the girls insisted on coming with him, with one of them even jumping into his back seat in the car. Jammu said they had persuaded him to drive away with them. As he contemplated how to get rid of the girls, he ended up driving to a remote road where he strangled them to death. Afterwards, he placed their bodies on planks from his trunk and set them on fire. He then packed the bodies in his trunk and meticulously gathered everything from the ground, despite the darkness making it difficult to see. Jammu claimed that after the murders, he went home to wait for nightfall, planning to dispose of the bodies in a place where they could eventually be discovered. When the police were about to arrest him, they asked why he had murdered the girls. Jammu responded that it was to get revenge on Arska, whom the girls might have known. Remember Jammu's prison farm that seemed to be set up for children? When questioned about the farm, Jammu stuck to his incoherent story about Arska, insisting that the prison was part of his scheme for revenge. The building was destroyed by the fire in the early 90s, so any potential evidence was likely lost in the blaze. As Jammu's trial began at the end of 1989, he had already been attacked in prison by other inmates. During the trial, the defense argued that Jammu had killed the girls as part of a revenge plot against Arska, trying to use this as an insanity defense. They claimed that the theft of the money was a valid motive for the attack. However, Arska denied any involvement in the theft, asserting that he was unaware Jammu had so much money to begin with. The double murders triggered a huge media coverage, with public outrage calling for extreme measures such as the death penalty or castration for Jammu. This media frenzy led to the harassment of individuals mistakenly identified as Jammu. Citizens with the same names, appearances, or even ages similar to Jammu faced harassment. Protesters displayed signs with messages such as "A sex offender does not improve in prison." Jammu was also hated in prison and faced numerous attacks from other inmates. The most severe incident occurred when an inmate snuck into his cell and struck him on the head with a chair. Later, while in Huhtiniemi mental hospital during his parole, reports confirmed that he sustained severe injuries from frequent assaults, including a serious hip injury that required surgery. After the surgery, he lost his ability to walk and became reliant on a wheelchair. By 1999, after serving 10 years of his 50-year sentence, Jammu was approaching his parole release, which was set to happen within a year. This impending release sparked significant public outrage, with many people expressing a desire to take vigilant actions against him. During these hectic times, an interview was published on a televised Finnish show called Kolmas Pyöre. It can be viewed on YouTube if anyone is interested in watching it. This is the only television interview Jammu ever gave. The video has nearly 2 million views, and I managed to grasp the general content by reading and translating the comments. According to Finnish speakers, Jammu told his version of events, portraying himself as the victim, but at the same time never denies murdering the girls. The way he retold his story was difficult to follow, very incoherent, and not very convincing. The people also sense that there is something very off-putting about his behavior. He tries to downplay everything with his confusing way of talking, which make it even more unsettling to listen to. His mannerism and the way he twists the narrative are incredibly distressing to witness. Here are some things he said in the TV interview. The girls approached me on their own. I stood there trying to figure out how to dispose of them with a plan in mind. Then, for the second time in my life, I saw red before my eyes, and suddenly I couldn't see anything at all. I felt like my vision had vanished completely. Under intense mental pressure, everything went blank. When I came to, the girls were lying on the ground dead. I realized they were dead, and I covered them up right there. I also burned their bodies to make them easier to move and lighter to carry. Yet, he also said, I've always been against violence, so it was all over the place, highly inconsistent, and not very convincing to the listeners. On top of it all, with his incoherent storytelling, he also tried to victimize himself and lessen the seriousness of the crimes, which also fueled the public anger further. However, Jammu believed this to be his truth until the day he died, 9th of March 2012.
So when you watch the interview on YouTube, there was a commenter who, made a observation, which I can kind of agree with, is that Jammu kind of resembles Charles Manson. So he's a murderer, as we already know. He's a very popular murderer, unfortunately. And Jammu's just like rambling when he speaks, and his general speech patterns are somewhat similar, kind of like this detached, all over the place. Like, you get the vibe that I'm trying to portray here. Like, you kind of if you watch the interview and then you even see some interviews when it came to Charles Manson, you'll see like their speech patterns, and it's kind of similar. And that's kind of what is disturbing about this thing, where it's like you can kind of see some patterns between not even just Charles Manson either. Like you'll notice even serial killers, they tend to have very similar get-ups and trains of thoughts. Like it's kind of weird. But anyways, but what's interesting about this is that his whole mental state and the plot holes of his story, right?
Yeah.
So the explanation that he gave under pressure or whatever, like I said, under pressure. Whoopsie.
Like he was under pressure and I saw red and, he was like blacking out, basically.
As if he was not mentally aware of his actions until after the fact. Like it was just like a blackout period, which usually is like a very typical excuse that a lot of people use when they're trying to say like, oh, I don't know what happened, I just blacked out, I just saw red and then that's it. Where, to be honest, that's not a very common thing. It can happen to some people, but to be calculated to the level that he was during this crime, you can't be unaware of that. Blacking out red is usually like a spur of the moment thing. Like, if you get into a fight, you black out and maybe you knocked out the person, but that's only a real quick moment. To be blacked out for like hours, no, that's not a thing.
If it was hours, we just assume it was hours or based on.
But it had to be hours. It had to be hours because that's one of the plot holes in his story, where because you can't kill someone.
Nobody really knew what happened during those hours, and his explanation was basically, "I saw red. I don't know anything. What happened?"
Right.
But then he knows that he didn't have sex with them.
Right. So I'm like, even in that statement alone, it's inconsistent. If you're blacked out, how would you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't be blacked out for that long. And even if we were to go by the details of his story, that doesn't make sense. So,
but
it's
also
like
I wanted to. Oh, yeah. Sorry, continue. Yeah. I
was gonna wrap up the sentence and say basically he's full of garbage. You can't pick and choose when you're blacked out, but you can remember certain no.
All the comments said the same thing. They're like, this is so inconsistent. They barely even understood what he was saying because he was just rambling and mumbling and just saying a lot of things. And, many people just was like, this doesn't make any sense at all. But I wanted to actually ask you about, do you think it was, that he had a bad impulse control or anger issues rather than him being partially insane? Because or do you think it's a mixture of both?
I can't say that he's not partially insane because at least from what I've read, it seems like he does display some of the traits, but I think he has this is my personal opinion at this point, so do not take this as a fact for whoever's listening, but I personally think he has more of an impulse control issue versus, the insanity thing. Because there are cases where the person who's committing the crime, maybe they have better impulse control, and then let's say they want to act on something, but they don't, but they still have these desires. Eventually, they might end up acting on it depending on the case, but it's not so rash and out of control and just, spur of the moment kind of situation. He seems like he has an impulse issue. He sees these girls, even including the story that we did last week, where we're talking about how he used to hunt these girls, even when he was married, had a wife still. He would go out at night with a crowbar. He was
good. He even was good in the beginning of the relationship.
Overwhelming desire. He had this desire to go chase and pursue these girls. And in the middle, think about it, in the middle of the night, let's put it into human perspective. When you're hungry in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I gotta go somewhere just to get the snack that you're craving, impulse control would tell you it's too late. I'm not gonna go hunting for some Haagen-Dazs, craving for ice cream. But when you lack impulse control, I need to find this ice cream, even if it's 4 a.m, I need to have it. And then you just have no control over when you want to, eat this stuff. So in his case, it was in the middle of the night pursuing young girls and then having a wife at home and still having this urge, I have to go get him. I have to go get him.
Yeah.
Impulse.
I actually do believe it's an impulse thing too. Cause like, but you know, psychiatrists and the experts, they did a very thorough investigation. So maybe he has like, but I'm surprised they never, like, at least what I could find, they didn't mention anything like that. But maybe it goes hand to hand with being partially insane. I don't know. But also he could just be like, you know, lying, you know, about the whole interview, everything he's saying. He could be lying as well, just to be to get the insanity defense, or like being seen as partially, you know, insane.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that he's just lying. He knew exactly what he was doing. You know, that could be that we've seen that many times before as well, where they're trying to get a little bit more of a lenient trial or case or judgment, basically. So
yeah, but
he had plot holes everywhere. He was not doing a great job if he tried to do that.
Yeah, I guess to like piggyback partially off of what I was saying and also what you were saying, I'm thinking, going through the process, there are certain mental illnesses where impulse control is a part of the kind of the foundation of the mental illness. Just like, you know, we was talking about, you know, the whole, you know, sometimes basically when you have, I don't know, my brain just threw out the sentence I was about to say. You know how like sometimes if you have autism or any form of dyslexia, whatever like that, it can be associated as well with ADHD. So I think it's the same thing with the impulse control. So like you have certain mental illnesses that like borderline personality disorder, for example, it is associated heavily with impulse control, where certain actions you don't have as much control over. And so I think, even though I think it's still his primary issue, it also makes sense that why he's classified as partially insane, but then why it would also come with the lack of impulse control, because his mind is not, you know, structured in a way that it should be. So even though I still think that's his primary issue, it is also attached to other things. So just so we have clarification for everybody else as well, they can be multiple things going on at once that can feed into a larger mental illness. Thank you, Professor Johnson. Oh, no problem. I'll send you my invoice. I just wanted to say something I read from a comment, which I thought was very interesting on the YouTube clip, is that, like, the only thing he managed to do, even though there were like plot holes in his story and it did not make any sense, he was still consistent with the same story. So he didn't change it. So I found something very interesting on the YouTube comment section that I thought was like, okay, yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. So the only thing that Jammu was able to do throughout the years was that he kept his story consistent. Even though there was like a lot of plot holes, it didn't make any sense, he kept it consistent. He never changed his story, which is like super weird. But the comment that, you know, I read, it said that it is like he spent years convincing himself of his own version of events to the point where he truly believes it. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's a thing. That's really a thing. And like, it doesn't have to mean that what he's saying is the truth. It could be that he just convinced himself it's his truth. You know? I want to tell a little mini story. It's a personal story of how stuff like that is very real. Okay. So this is like back in like, I don't care at this point because it's been like a kajillion years. So immortal. So this is when I was right, but I was working at Uniqlo that I had like graduated from high school, right? And I graduated from high school, and this is like a couple months after I was about to start my first semester of college. So I was working I live in New York City. So this is back on this is like 52nd Street, 6th Avenue, 6.5 Avenue, something like that. That store over there. Yeah. If you're from New York, you know the store I'm talking about. So I was there for like a few months. I had worked there for like maybe 5-6 months. But I remember one time I just didn't care about the job because I had class one, and then they were not as flexible as they advertised themselves to be. So I remember I came in late. I was coming from class, and then I'm telling my supervisor like, this is an old story that happened to me, something that did happen to me, but I was using it, obviously years later. I came into work. I was like, I got harassed by this cop. Like I was trying to get on the train, and he just wouldn't let me get on the train. He's like, I got to search your bag. This is back in New York City when like search and frisk was like at its peak. And I was like, he just wouldn't let me go on the train. I'm sitting here like, I got to go to work. Like I'm leaving from class. I got to go to work, and he wouldn't let me do it. And because I'm telling parts of a story that did happen to me when I was younger, and this is like years later, and I'm like telling the story to the supervisor, I got really amped up and angry. But then halfway through my work shift, I was still tight. And then I literally went to the bathroom and looked at myself. I'm bugging right now. Like, it didn't happen. Like, that did not happen. Why am I actually angry right now? Like, it didn't happen. But it's like, even like as someone who's, within the normal range of sanity, because I'm pretty sure something's wrong with me as well. So
you're borderline crazy or what? Like what's...
I might be. But I know for a fact there are times, even as like people who have some sense to us, we can convince ourselves of something sometimes scary easily. And I tell that story as an example because I really went through half my shift angry, and I'm like, that didn't happen. I just came from class. I just had a test. That's all it was. And they just messed up my schedule. Like, it was really that simple, but I had convinced myself. So I believe it's entirely possible for someone who's not in their right mind to spend years convincing themselves like, he did this to me, and, he was out to get me, and then years and years convincing themselves. I was able to do that within 10 to 15 minutes. Now, can you imagine what it would take just for years of convincing yourself of something like that?
Yeah,
I believe it.
Like
it's
gaslighting yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy. Wait. Pause. I have memory loss. Did we talk about that he said I never sexually assaulted them part?
Yeah,
was it on record or off record?
And I think he did say it, because remember we just spoke about it. He was like, but
I think it was off
out.
Record. I don't think it was recorded. Like,
no, we just said it. That he has said that I blacked out, but then I don't remember actually assaulting them. Remember we said that sentence?
Okay. In that case, just skip this part then. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I guess we're gonna wrap up this episode then. So, we will put this at the end of this episode. We were gonna put the whole interview part. It's like approximately 8 minutes long. If our Finnish listeners want to listen to it,
want to just listen into it,
yeah. And if we are wrong in the translation or anything, just you're welcome to notify us if you want to, so we can in that case correct it later on. But other than that, just enjoy the rambling of Jammu, and I guess that's that. Want to wrap it up with the food thing we always do? I think it's good. Because you sent me a mukbang video, I had to eat some ramen today, so I actually did, and it was really good, and I want that again.
I would like some good old macaroni and cheese.
That's very good.
Yeah, it is.
Creamy.
And
nice.
Before you listen to the next video, guys, be sure to stop gaslighting yourself. It's not okay. And deal with your problems,
Deal with your what?
Deal with your own
good
problems.
Advice. That is really good advice.
Yourself.
Stop gaslighting yourself, bro. Like, just live your life and be normal.
Live in your truth. There's beauty in that.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy the interview, I guess.
Yeah.
But, be sure to follow us on social media. And remember, if you want to correct us for anything, this reminds me, I don't think I said it in the last episode. There's going to be a link in our podcast description where you're allowed to send us text messages. I think I did say it, actually.
No, I don't think you did.
Well, here we are. So you can send us text messages. You can just click the link, send a text, and then so that way it'll go directly to us, like directly to us. Not like our phones directly, but the platform that we use to, manage everything. It'll go directly to that. And then I don't think we're allowed to respond to the messages, but we'll see them. And, we can take corrections that way, as well as if you want to say hi or if you want to see how our day was, all that stuff, you're allowed to do that there as well. So there's that. And also follow us on social media. Also, make sure you go follow us on YouTube. By now, there's already a video that's out from last week regarding kind of like a little psychological profile breakdown that I do. And it's only going to be, like 10-minute videos, but I do it like once every 3 weeks. So that way, you guys can get a little bit more deeper into the psychological aspects of the cases that we've previously done. And like I said, it's very super casual. I said very super casual. That's a very messed up sentence. It's very casual, super simple, and just very chill. So go check it out. Go subscribe, and
And also,
I
apologize if this was like super chaotic because I'm the reader. Next time it's gonna be Devante.
But the audience will never know that because it's gonna get edited out. Either way, follow us on social medias and be sure to check out YouTube. And here is the interview with Jammu.
Okay, bye.
Mä tee väkivaltaa kellekään. Niin, kun mä oon päinvastoin väkivaltaa vastaan ollut aina, niin nyt mä vasta opin tuntemaan se, että kun joutuu oikein kova henkisen painin alle, niin siinä voi tehdä ihan mitä vaan. Siinä ihminen itse pystyy reagoimaan itse ollenkaan. Se oli siinä 20 ja 21 välillä niillä. Mä näin, kun ne tuli juosten siihen, tähän missä mä seison. Sitten se yksi kiipesi siihen telineelle, se kiipesi, siinä pyörii ja leikkee. Sitten se vaaleampi tukka, niin kun mä tunnen, se vaaleampi tukka, niin se rupesi kyselemään, että minkä takia mä siinä seison. Mä laskin heti, että tähän on ihan outoa, että vieras tyttö rupeaa kysymään multa, että kun se on yleinen paikka, kato. Mä kävelin auton luo, niin mä katsoin, niin tämä vaaleetukka se käveli minun jäljessä noin 5 metriä minun jäljessä. Niin tämä rupesi kokeilemaan tätä mun takaovea, se vaaleetukka, niin se koko ajan puhuu ja touhusi siinä. No se aukesi tämä ovi, niin tämä hyppäsi heti mun auton takapenkään. Ja sanoi tämä toiseen, että tule sinäkin tänne istumaan. Nyt kun tämä toinen tuli, niin tämä vaaleetukka niin sanoi, että he olkaa pikkasen matkaa minun kyydissä sitten. Näin se sanoi, että nyt mä olin tässä semmoiset välikäsiä, että mä ajattelin, mä ajan tuossa pyöräyttänyt tuommoisen lenkin, mä ajattelin, että se lähtee sitten pois. Sitten mä ajoin siihen vähän matkassa. Mä sanoin, että mulla on pohjoiseen asioita, että mun täytyy lähteä nyt ajaa pohjoiseen. Mä koitin tällä pelotella, että olisi lähtenyt sillä keinoin pois. Mä pysähdyin katossa siihen sitten ja mä menin siihen tienlassa siis seisoin ja mä odotin, että mitä mä keksin, mä suunnittelin tätä, että millä mä pääsin niitä eroon. Tämä minulla oli kaikkein esu. Ja sitten lopulta, tämä on toinen kerta elämässä, kun silmässä lävähti siis punaista ihan en mä nähnyt ollenkaan, mulla meni niin kuin näkö sillä hetkellä, mä olin niin raskaan henkisen paineen alla. Mä olin siinä, mä en itse sitä tiedä ollenkaan. Sitten siitä kun mä selvisin, niin ne tytöt oli siinä, makasi siinä maassa. Mä pyrin katsomaan niitä, siinä. Niin siinä mä näin, että ne oli kuollut sitten. Jos mulla olisi ollut semmoisia seksmisiä, eihän mulla olisi, kun ne tuli mun autoon, niin mä olisin ollut nastan lautaan. Mä olisin ollut 12 jälkeen, mä olisin ollut pohjoisessa jo. Ja siellä mä olisin voinut pitää tätä vaikka viikon. Niin. Mutta ei mukaan meillä tämmöistä tarkoittaa ollut alkuunkaan. Mä nostin ne autoon, sitten mä ajoin ja mä mietin, että millä mä saisin. Mä voisin miettiä sitä, että mun pitäisi vielä ne takaisin sille, että miten mä saan vietyä niin huomaamattoman takaisin, että ne löytää sen sitten siellä. Sen pöydältä mä ajattelin, mä poltan, että mä saan niin kevyimmäksi, että mä jaksan yhdessä kantaa nopeasti sinne. Ja mä mietin katossa, että näitä asioita, että miten mä nyt tässä selviän ja niin pois. Ja kun mä tiesin, että mua seurataan jatkuvasti, siitä mä olin tietoinen, että mä menin kotiin, kun sitten mä keitin siellä ruokaa ja söin siinä ja mä makailin ja lepäisin sohvalla. Mä odotan niin kuin iltaa. Mä sitten ilta pimeässä mä olisin vienyt sinne katsotaan. Ne oli mun auton takakontissa. Mä sinne laitoin ne sitten. Ja senkin rikospoliisit tiesi, että ne on siellä. Ne oli niin tarkkaan seurannut minua katoa. Näin on. Koska silloin kun ne pidätti, mutta me mentiin, se käski katoa avata. Se ei käskenyt avata auton muita ovia, vaan takakontti käskevä. Mä tiesin siitä jo heti että ne tietää, että ne on siellä. No mä avasin sen ja sitten se kysyi, mitä siinä on. Mä sanoisin, että no tiedätte. Tämä yleensä siis katkeroittaa ihmisen mieltä katoa. Ei mua kenenkään kasutellut.
Minkä takia?
Mä oon ihan yksin ollut sellissä 23 tuntia päivässä sellissä ja sitten mitä tunnin päässä ei kävellyt, niin sen mä oon kävellyt. No 10 vuotta mulle tulee sitten. Ja sitten katsottua johtokuntahan laittokalossa. Mä oon kirkkoonkin pyytänyt 2 tunnin saatettua omaa kirkkoon Tampereelle. Mä olin sen pastorin kanssa kirjeenvaihdossakin. Niin mä en sinnekään pääsemään muutaman kerran panin sen. Mä laitoin sinne ja nyt mä laitoin viime keväänä, kun laitoin lomannumusta ja pääsin hoitamaan kadossa asioita. Esimerkiksi asuntoa itselleni kaikki noin. Niin siihenkin mä sain tyssit katoja. Ja tämän jälkeen heti vankilan johtokunta laittoi sitten oikeusministeriölle anomukset, että saisivat lisää aikaa, koska vankilaoikeus pystyy antamaan vain 2 kuukautta. Niin ne pyrkii hakemaan enemmän vielä kuin siis mitä vankilaoikeus pystyy antamaan. Mulla on sen verran, että kyllä mä pääsin elämään oikein normaalia ja kunnolla elämään. Niin. Siihen mä oon pyrkinyt kouluttamaan koko ajan tällä aikaa. Ja sen mä pystyn järjestämään nyt, että ei enää pasiarikos pysty järjestämään mulle tämmöisiä henkisiä paineita, mitä ne järjesti tähän. Nehän seuraa mun joka askelta edelleenkin, kun joutuu valvonnassa, joutuu valvomaan, niin seuraa joka askelta. Ne tietää kaikki, ketkä minun asuntoon tulee ja ketkä lähtee pois. Nehän on kaikki täysin selvillä. Mä tiedän nämä itsestään jo valmiiksi etukäteen. Niin, ei muuta tee ketään kotona tavata. Mä meinaan pitää kotona semmoisen rauhallisella tyysiä, missä saa rauhassa levätä ja olla sitten ihan omissa olossani. Ja sitten kun haluaa vaihtelua, niin mä voin lähteä kävelemään ulos johonkin luontoon. Mä ihailen luontoa aina. Luonnossa voi kävellä sitten ja kaupoissa käyn katsossa ruokaostoksilla ja noin. Semmoista kuin rikoksia mä en edes ajattelekaan olekaan. Mä pidän aina kaiken tuolla sisään. Mä en koskaan laske mitään ulos, enkä pyri purkamaan sitä kehenkään ihmiseen. Mä oon nähnyt semmoisia ihmisiä, kun katkeroitu, ne purkaa sen toiseen ihmiseen. Ja mä oon monen ihmisen väliin joutunut mennä tämmöiseen aviopuolisen väliin. Niiden rouvat, jotka tuntee minun, niin ainoa se mies on ruvennut uhkaimaan niitä pahoinpitää tommoisia. Ne on juossut minun selän taakse aina. Ja katsoin niin kuin huvilalle, kun mulla oli niitä tuttavia, niin tuli lasten kanssa sinne. Me oltiin kaikki, ja huvilassakin, me oltiin kaikki yhdessä saunassa, niin. Ja tytöt ja sitten kaikki me käytiin, niitä tyttöjen vanhemmat, niin me käytiin kaikki saunassa, niin. Eikä siinä edes ajatellutkaan semmoisia, niin. Ei mulla ole minkäänlaista kiirettä. Jos mulla olisi ollut kiirettä, niin mä olisin saanut niin paljon, mä olisin halunnut niin eikä sen takia tarvitse ihmistä tappaa, niin minusta se on ihan älytöntä, ihminen tapetaan sen takia.
Onko sulla ollut mitään mahdollisuutta sanoa näille äideille mitään?
Mä tiedän, mitä on suru, niin. Ja mä tiedän aivan varmaan, että kyllä hekin tuntee ihan omalta tuolta, mutta tämä, mikä on tehty, niin eihän sitä saa tekemättömäksi. Kyllä meikäläinen tekisi sen tehtäväksi, mutta sillä ei mahda mitään. Niin. Mun kaikkein pahin tuomon vaivan anto sattui tuolla justiin. Niin. Siihen mä oon itteni haukkunut ja kironnut tuommoista nyt. Mä en koskaan ajatellut tuommoista tapahtua.